Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Reason We Learn. I'm Deb Philman, mom, homeschooler, educator. Have you ever wondered what your school district or what your state is up to when it comes to teaching your kid about, I don't know, things you might not want them to be learning about, things that fall outside the standard curriculum, things that may even fall outside the skill set of the teacher in the classroom, not to mention their authority or, you know, rights like parental rights? Well, there's a site you need to know about. It's called What Are They Learning? And I will put the link in the description section below. But you might want to check up on this every now and again because, as you can see, they have, parents submit things. And if something comes up, you should submit it. And it goes by state, and you can look at what's happening in your district. There's a nice map there and so on. But here's what I found that caught my eye. This goes back to November 18th. So I guess a little over a week ago. School teaches kids how to circumvent parents to engage in racial activism. How would you respond in this scenario? I really wanted to participate in a local protest on the racial injustices in our country, but my parents would not let me go. Now, before I go into this, let's think about some of the reasons. This is in Fairfax, Virginia. Why? What are some reasons parents might not want a minor student, still in a school, to attend a protest? Let's see. Have protests turned violent? Yeah, they have. Have people been pepper sprayed, tear gassed, or even just attacked by fellow protesters or rival protesters? Yeah, they have. Have people gotten arrested? Uh-huh. Could an arrest on your record possibly impact your college career or your future job prospects? Even if it's, not 100% your fault, but you were in the wrong place at the wrong time and just didn't know what you were caught up in. Yeah. Are there people who show up at protests that start off well meaning and they're agitators and they turn everything pretty ugly and it can get very violent very fast? Have people been shot and beaten and seriously wounded at protests recently this year? Yes, they have. Yes, they have. So this is sort of a safety issue. And more important than that, see, this is November 18th. Aren't we in the middle of a pandemic? I don't know. Last time I checked, pandemic. I mean, kids are not even really supposed to be going to protests. So it would seem to me probably best for teachers to stick to the curriculum they're supposed to be learning since they're not really even spending as much time on classroom activities. They're not learning as well. And Fairfax in particular has a 60% increase in failures. So maybe they ought to stick to the topics that they need to stick to so these kids can actually learn, maybe take the ACT, maybe pass, maybe get in college, maybe go on to trade school. Who knows? I don't know. Do something successful with their lives. But no, we need to spend some time talking about how we would respond to the scenario and what do they advise? What do they advise? I really wanted to participate in a local protest and racial injustice, blah, blah, blah. I will ask my parents again and have a plan on how to stay safe. If they still say no, I will protest through my social media and start a fundraiser to support organizations that fight against racial injustice. Well, isn't that just super helpful? Well, it's nice of them at least to acknowledge that, maybe they ought to obey their parents and not show up at the protest, but they still are validating the desire to protest when they don't know any of the circumstances. I mean, this could be an impressionable kid. This could be like a 16-year-old. Brain science tells us their brains are not fully developed. They are subject to peer pressure in ways that adults over the age of 25 simply aren't. And actually, that continues till about 30. But teachers have no business offering up these kinds of solutions to our children. They don't know the kids' circumstances. They don't know who's influencing them. This is insane. This is insane. And this person asks, why is FCPS undermining parents and why are they focused on indoctrination instead of education? It's a really, really good question. It's a really good question. Even if you wanted to be generous and say that, well, this in and of itself doesn't amount to indoctrination, I think that's super generous because you're suggesting by creating this scenario that protest is this thing that they should, absolutely be thinking about, talking about, worrying how they would deal with the scenario. I would love to know what class this is in. Isn't there something they need to be learning about, the history of the world and how the world works now? But no, we'll discuss this scenario. Well, let's go back. Let's see what else is happening. what's happening over here in Wake County, North Carolina. Today is Transgender Day of Remembrance. Rethink Schools asks, what is required by each of us to protect the lives of transgender people? Okay, and then we have all this Transgender Day of Remembrance. What is required by each of us to protect the lives? Why? Why would anything be required of each of us other than don't hurt people? People, period. People, not just transgender people, any people. Don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. It's a message you really can't repeat often enough, I think. But what else? And then we have BLM principle, transgender affirming, Transgender Day of Remembrance, BLM at school. This is necessary. Remember, these students are going to school online because it is just so unsafe. They can't go into the schools. And now we're honoring Black trans lives. Now, I'm going to link in the description section to a video, really excellent video, actually, debunking the entire, it's Matt Christiansen, the entire Transgender Day of Remembrance, because it really deserves to be debunked. The vast majority of the names on the list of people who are being honored died in Puerto Rico. What you need to know about that is that Puerto Rico has an abnormally high murder rate anyway. What you need to know beyond that is that in all but I think 2 cases that we're supposedly remembering, there's no evidence at all the person was killed because they were transgender. In fact, one person was killed by their spouse, who obviously knew they were transgender, didn't have a problem with it. But I'll link to the video. You can watch for yourself. But why are the Wake County Public Schools doing this? Why do we have BLM at school? And why are we teaching our kids that there's something required of each of us to protect these lives? No, we're not the police. Each kid is there for him or herself or themselves to learn, to get an education, to go out in the world and be successful and survive. This isn't part of it. That's not why I don't send my kids to school in a public school. But when I did, once upon a time, before I was able to pull them out, this was not even on my list anywhere of priorities. This wasn't even like number 1,000 something on my list of priorities. Just wasn't there. Obliging my children to worry about the lives of others beyond don't hurt them and don't take their stuff. And if somebody else is doing it, tell someone. That's about it. That's about it. So that's a pretty short conversation. And I don't think we need BLM at school. But I'm going to put the link to what are they learning in the description section, because I think you might want to look up your own schools, because it just goes on and on and on, guys. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Yep. State board proposes a rule requiring teachers to train students to be activists. How you feel about that one? Denver school directors, all Republicans are racist. I mean, this goes on. You could spend an afternoon reading this, really. And, what are they teaching? What are they learning? What are they teaching our kids? These are flagged. There's a flagged curriculum list too, by the way. So I just think you ought to know about this website so you can check it out. And the purpose of the site, as it says, with coronavirus I think they meant to say, distance learning, parents are discovering what has been going on behind closed doors for years. Yes, that is correct. I can tell you as a teacher, it's been going on for years. It's why I don't teach in public schools, why I haven't for decades, because it's been going on that long. Routinely assigned curriculum that aggressively pushes points of view on contemporaneous political debates and encourages students to adopt the belief that they are oppressed and powerless, even if they previously operated under the assumption that they were happy and free. Silly little children thinking they were happy and free. The use of government money to push a political agenda is a shocking breach, and no person, even if you agree with the ideas, should support it. Can't agree more. It has often gone undetected because American schools are run by 13,000 independent school systems. To whom do you turn when someone takes advantage of their access to your child to teach non-academic ideas that are at best political, at worst factually wrong, and even psychologically devastating? And that's what anti-racism is, by the way. It is the whole white fragility and unearned guilt and all that, like an original sin that goes with your skin color. That is devastating psychologically. It's absolutely abysmal to teach that to children, especially calling it diversity and inclusion, because it's not inclusion, it's exclusion. It's saying, if you look like this, you're excluded from this whole set of, of beliefs. You shouldn't believe these things because you have the wrong skin color. And if you have the other skin color, then you should, be excluded from this set of beliefs. Otherwise, you're internalizing racism. It's very exclusive. It's not inclusive. And they, dressed it up in vague but pleasant sounding words. These initiatives sometimes pass unnoticed in principle, but once implemented, they are nothing like what residents thought or would be okay with. They are not racial sensitivity training or diversity training. You have to see it to believe it. Yes, you really do. America's most important institution has been taken over by people espousing cynical, pessimistic, and divisive beliefs that almost no one outside a group of professional activists actually believes. And that's really the important thing to understand here, is that we are talking about a tiny minority of people in this country who believe this stuff. They just happen to be concentrated heavily in academia. And when they have access to young, impressionable minds whose brains are not fully developed to use reason, to use their own minds, to form opinions, to form, conclusions, and they are given conclusions. So they never learn how to form them. They're just given them. Like, open their brain, go, here, these are the conclusions you should have if you want to be a good person. I mean, if you don't want to be a good person, that's okay. If you want to be a racist or a Nazi, like someone who doesn't agree with me, that's fine. But, and that's basically what they're telling your kids. So, as I said, I'll put the link in the description box. You need to bookmark this, and you need to be checking it out periodically to keep up to date on what's going on. Look over your kid's shoulder if they are virtual learning, or better yet, just get your kid out of the public schools. I hate to say it, if it's at all within your power, you might want to consider it, because they actually can do worse doing this virtual schooling nonsense with this kind of curriculum, or even once they go back to school, if they continue to teach this stuff, than if you simply unschooled them and gave them a bunch of books and, figured that out. But I realize that's not for everyone. Not everybody can do that. They need to go to work. They use school as sort of, a daycare situation. And I understand that. I empathize. Believe me, I've been in that situation myself. But I do want you to know what is going on, because this problem will only be solved locally. If you're holding out hope that somebody at the federal level is going to fix this for you, it's not going to happen. This is going to happen locally. You need to speak up in your local PTO meetings. You need to go to your local school board meetings. You need to, raise the roof with the people locally, and then to state level, and so on and so forth. You need to be a thorn in the side of your school superintendent. You need to and not alone, you need to get people together, organize. And you have rights. You absolutely have rights. You and your student have rights. And one of them is that you're entitled to full transparency. So if you sense something is going on, and you see something over your child's shoulder virtually, or you see some materials and you question that, you have every right in the world to ask to see all of it. Where's it coming from? What is the point of it? And the most important question is, why is the teacher qualified to teach it? Because, in many cases, these teachers are teaching outside the lines. They have state certifications that are for their specific subject. They are not supposed to step outside the lines. You shouldn't have a science teacher doing social justice. They're not trained for that. You shouldn't have even a social studies teacher. This barely falls in line with that. If they have not been taught the child psychology necessary to teach things like social justice, to understand the implications to the child's mind of telling them, you're a victim, you're helpless in this white supremacist society, they are doing real damage, and they are coloring outside the lines, and you need to step up and say, they need to stop. And only you can do it. Only you parents can do it. Nobody at the federal level is going to be able to do it. Even at the state house, they're not going to be able to do it all by themselves, because the perception they have, as long as parents are going along with it or quiet about it, is that parents are okay with this. And of course, the schools lead them to believe that. If you're not okay with this, even if you're sort of okay with the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion training, but you don't like the way they're doing it, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. You need to speak up. And this is where you can start and get a fix on what's going on, whether you agree, whether you don't agree. And you might disagree with me, like I said, about some of the specifics of what I find objectionable, but I hope you will at least consider and do your own research what's going on in your child's mind when an adult, a trusted adult, or even just an adult in a position of authority, defines for them what it is to be a victim, what it is to be an oppressor, and what it is to, what they should be feeling about things, about their circumstances in life. You really need to seriously consider whether the school teacher is the right person to be doing that. I never would have done that. I would feel like I was abusing a child, if not my child. I wouldn't do it to my child, never mind someone else's child. That is way overstepping my bounds, even if I agreed with this, which I don't. So I would never share my political views or in any way, shape, or form with my students of any age. Of any age, I never would do it. They should not know, in my opinion. So that is what I wanted to share with you in this little episode. Thanks for watching. If you like this content, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, and that's the video.